Well, we're about to go into the menus now. So if you depress the menu button, the first setting or the first menu option is your playback menu. And here's where you set the camera up so that when you're playing back through camera, you can actually make some settings for the display and things like that. Well, the first one is your delete options. So you can set the delete to either delete only selected items or delete all. Again, I'm not an in-camera delete type of person, but those are the options you have available. Now, you also have what's called playback folder. And for anybody that shoots multiple different scenarios, or maybe say you shoot team sports or something like that, throughout the day you could actually create multiple folders and drop all those images or shoot all those images from each different team into a folder and name them, which may make it easier to sort later when you get back. We have hide image. So now maybe you've set up a bunch of images and you want to show some of these to your friends or a client or something. You can actually go in and hide any that you don't want visible on the back of the screen. They're not deleted, they're still there, but they just don't show in the playback setting. We've got the display mode. Now that's a pretty important one. When you go into the display mode, you push the right connector to get deeper into the menu, and then you scroll down using the multi-connector. Some of the options that you have are focus point. So the camera's actually, when you're in playback mode, going to show you which focus point was active. You also have options for highlights. Now that's a really important one. I've got that turned on, and I refer back to that almost all the time when I'm in difficult lighting situations. What happens is the camera, when the image is brighter than what it can capture, the tonal range is actually greater than what the camera can capture. Any area where there's highlights without any detail, it will blink black and white, black and white. In fact, here's an example. So with highlights activated here in the display mode, you can cycle through the playback and through the shooting information until you see the word highlights displayed as shown here. And that's going to give you a warning that you've got areas in your image that are blown out without detail, as I mentioned. Now, it's up to you as to whether or not that's going to be important. But if it is, it's an indicator that it may be time to dial in some exposure compensation. The next one down, the RGB histogram. That's going to show you 3 different histograms, red, green, and blue. So again, it's going to show you areas that may be clipped or area without detail. And the final one is data. That's going to give you your shooting information, such as shutter speed, aperture, whether or not you had flash on, your metering. Personally, I have every one of those selected. With each one, what you do is once you've decided that you want it, you scroll down. When it's highlighted, if you hit the center button on the multi-connector, that puts a little check mark in the box. And then you simply scroll up, click the Done button, using the center in the multi-selector, and you've now set the display options that you want. Next in the playback menu is the image review. You basically have the option of whether the camera instantly pops the image back on the LCD screen or not. Personally, I have it turned off. It saves battery time and power, and I only look at images when I have question about exposure or maybe critical focus.
The time that you would want that on is if you are first setting up for like some sort of studio shoot or something, and you need to check an image pretty much every time you shoot. So whenever you take a picture, if you're looking at it every time anyway, you may as well go ahead and turn the image review on.
Absolutely, that's a good application for it. That's a great one. There's the next one, after delete. Now this is when you're doing in-camera deleting again, but basically you're in the playback mode. You've decided which one to delete. So you have the option of either having it default now to showing the next image in the sequence or going back to the previous one. Or you can just have it just continue on as you were shooting or cycling through the playback. Since I don't delete in camera, I just leave it on the camera's default. Now the rotate tall, that's for in-camera again. This is all playback on your rear LCD. And if you're finding that you shoot a lot of verticals and you don't like the option of turning the camera into vertical to see the screen, the image will actually be in the vertical orientation or portrait orientation on the rear screen. Again, personal choice, I have mine turned off because I like to see the image as large as possible on the screen. It does reduce the size. The next one down is the slideshow. I was mentioning how you can actually plug these into either your computer or into a TV. If you kick this into slideshow mode, you have the ability to set an interval, how long each slide is going to be on. And once you've selected that, you simply hit the OK button, and this camera is just going to cycle through all those images so everybody can sit back and enjoy the day's shoot. And the last setting, it's called Print Set, DPOF. This is a setting where you can actually go back into the camera and again, choose the specific images that you're going to want to print. And if you have the specific DPOF printers, or if you're going into a custom lab, like a store that has the little card readers, when you input your card into there, it's only going to recognize or print the images that you've pre-selected here in the camera. That way you can do some in-camera editing, again, without having to delete images that you may want to keep but just don't want to print. It can be a useful tool. Well, we've covered the playback menu, so let's move on. Our next menu is the shooting menu.